Welcome back to the deep dive. So you gave us this incredible stack of sources. We're talking economic models, very detailed historical records, and even 19th century medical journals, all focused on U.S. chattel slavery.
Right, and it's a topic that feels more relevant than ever.
It really is. I mean, you see this growing discussion in public, in politics, trying to sort of recategorize the whole system.
Yeah.
You hear phrases like a harsher form of indentured servitude, or a lot of focus on its value as, labor training.
Exactly.
So our mission today is, I think, very clear. We are putting those records, that economic data, right under the microscope. We're going to see what these sources actually tell us about the architecture of it all, what it was, how it worked as an economic machine, and why it was so different.
Fundamentally different.
Okay, let's unpack this and get right to it.
The first thing that just jumps out from the material is that this was never a labor debate. It was a uniquely engineered race-based architecture.
Right.
I mean, you look at European indentured servitude, there was always a contract, a fixed term, and there was a legal path to freedom at the end of it.
A light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak.
A legal one, yes. The sources define the American model as something else entirely. It was perpetual, it was hereditary, and it was designed to establish what they call a corporate oligarchy fueled by human trafficking.
Wow.
The entire financial and legal system treated people not as labor, but as permanent transferable capital, like stock. And that distinction is really the key to all of it.
So let's start right there with the money, because one of the biggest myths that this data just demolishes is the idea that slavery was this, inefficient, archaic system that just sort of faded away.
That is a fundamental misunderstanding of American economic power. The reality is the complete opposite. U.S. chattel slavery was arguably the most modern and brutally productive economic engine of its time. It wasn't fading out. It was fueling the entire global industrial revolution.
So the whole idea that the U.S. just powered its way to the top through, the Protestant work ethic alone, that's a very incomplete picture.
Deeply incomplete. The sources are clear. The Industrial Revolution, especially textiles in Britain and the North, ran on one thing: king cotton.
And that cotton needed massive output.
Massive disciplined output.
Yeah.
And you get that through a revolutionary and frankly terrifying labor management system.
And this is where we get into historian Edward E. Baptist's research on the pushing system.
Exactly.
This is not traditional farming we're talking about, is it? It's something else.
It's optimization. It's a factory floor model applied to human beings. The goal was to get these huge productivity breakthroughs without investing in technology.
So instead of a new machine,
you turn a human body into what the sources chillingly call an organic robot.
let's talk about the scale of that optimization, because usually you see productivity go up because of something like the steam engine or the cotton gin.
And that's what's so stunning in the data. Between 1800 and 1860, the amount of cotton picked per person, per enslaved person, it increased by 400%.
100%.
An astronomical number. And it was achieved almost entirely through violence, not machinery.
How is that even possible? What did the pushing system actually look like day to day?
It was an extreme form of quantitative management with immediate calibrated torture.
Okay.
Overseers had quotas. So if an enslaved man picked 100 pounds of cotton today, that became his new minimum for tomorrow.
It never went down.
Never. And the penalty for missing that quota was standardized. It was brutal. 1 lash of the whip for every single pound you miss.
So if you're 10 pounds short,
you get 10 lashes. The system was designed to just constantly ratchet up the physical demand, pushing human beings to their absolute breaking point. And that's where that massive unnatural productivity came from. That's the wealth.
And that wealth, that cotton, it flows north, it flows across the ocean. Which brings us to the financial side of this. The South was the engine, fine, but Northern finance wasn't just, passively watching. And this is where it gets really interesting for understanding modern wealth.
You have to follow the money.
Right.
Off the plantation and right onto Wall Street. Northern banks weren't just offering loans, they were foundational partners.
Partners in what sense?
They financialized human bodies. We're talking about the direct predecessors to institutions we all know today. J.P. Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo.
And they were accepting enslaved people as collateral? Is that what you mean?
As literal line item collateral.
Uh-huh.
A planter in Mississippi needs capital to buy more land. He goes to the bank and he lists a certain number of human beings as the tangible asset backing that loan.
Wow. So if the planter defaulted on that loan...
The bank didn't just take the land. They legally took ownership of the human beings.
So Wall Street itself became a slave owner?
Directly. At times, they were in the business of owning and managing human assets. This shows how deep this goes, right into the country's financial blueprint.
And you see the same thing in risk management, which, most people never even think about. The insurance
Right.
giants.
The predecessors to companies like New York Life, Aetna.
And these insurance policies are a perfect example of this. This systemic dehumanization,
You're
right? All dressed up as good business.
That's exactly what it is. These companies sold policies on the lives of enslaved people.
But, and this is the key distinction the sources make, this wasn't life insurance for the enslaved person's family.
Absolutely not. It was property insurance. It protected the slaveholder's investment, his asset.
Against what? Death or...
Death, injury, or escape. It's hard to overstate how much this financial infrastructure, collateral, insurance, how much it cemented the system as this sophisticated corporate enterprise. It's a world away from servitude.
Okay, let's pivot to the human cost, because this is where that revisionist argument, slavery happened everywhere, what's the big deal? This is where it completely falls apart.
It does. The distinction is critical. The American system was uniquely perpetual and hereditary. It created what historical sociologists call social death.
So bad.
Yeah, it wasn't just about forced labor. It was an architecture designed to destroy identity, to destroy family, to destroy any possibility of future freedom for every generation to come.
And this concept of social death, it actually drove some of the most horrific economic shifts, didn't it? Especially after the international slave trade was banned in 1808.
That ban didn't stop the system. It just forced it to pivot inward. And that led to what historians call the breeding economy.
So because you couldn't import people anymore.
You had to produce them domestically.
Yeah.
The South needed a continuous supply of labor for the new cotton fields out west. So enslaved women were suddenly categorized, valued based on their fertility.
So controlling reproduction became an economic strategy.
It became an economic imperative. The sources are blunt about this. State policy, the legal system, they effectively categorized rape as capital accumulation. Enslaved people were managed, bred like livestock, to supply this vast internal human trafficking network that kept the whole thing profitable.
And the violence was often specifically aimed at destroying the family, wasn't it? As a form of control.
It was about total psychological subjugation. The records detail things like the public display of sexual violence, forcing people to watch rapes, and the systemic sexual violation of men, a practice known as buck breaking.
And the goal of that was to
emasculate them. To destroy any sense of kinship or protection, to make sure every individual felt completely alone and powerless.
The ultimate sign of this absolute dehumanization, is the recorded devaluation of infant life. The sources mention the practice of gator bait.
It's a chilling detail. It's confirmed by oral histories, by artifacts. The practice of using infants and toddlers as hunting equipment in swamps.
As bait.
As bait to lure alligators. It shows you that the system viewed a black infant as functionally the same as a piece of raw material, disposable equipment. That level of economic dehumanization it's just unique to this architecture.
And all of this brutality was justified not just by planters, but by the supposedly objective medical community. They invented a pseudoscience to rationalize it.
The medical establishment provided the intellectual scaffolding for the whole thing. Harriet A. Washington's work, Medical Apartheid, it exposes how doctors literally pathologized black existence.
You're talking about figures like Dr. J. Marion Sims.
Exactly. Celebrated as the father of modern gynecology. The records show he performed dozens of experimental surgeries on enslaved women, Anarcha, Lucy, Betsy, over and over, without any anesthesia.
And the justification, the myth that allowed this?
The myth was that black people had a coarser nervous organization, that they simply didn't feel pain the way white people did. And that belief didn't just stay in the operating room.
It justified the pushing system.
It justified everything. It allowed overseers to rationalize the daily systematic torture.
They even went so far as to pathologize the desire for freedom itself.
That might be the most telling example of all. A prominent physician, Dr. Samuel Cartwright, he invented a mental illness. He called it drapetomania.
And the symptom of this disease
was the natural human desire to run away, to be free.
And what was the cure?
The prescribed cure, in his own medical writings, was regular, severe whipping to subdue the mind. It shows you how every pillar of society, finance, medicine, law was mobilized to keep the economic machine running.
Which brings us to right now. We've established the unique economic architecture. The pushing system, northern finance, social death. We have the data. We have the records. So
Mm.
what is the strategic reason for this political effort to redefine it all right now?
Well, the sources point to this revisionism as a pretty deliberate strategic operation, and it has two main goals, both tied directly to the system's economic foundation.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is evading liability. If you can successfully rebrand chattel slavery as just a harsh form of indenture, something that happened everywhere, was supposed to end, you erase the fact that the U.S. system was a unique, race-based crime against a specific group of people.
So you're basically trying to bankruptcy-proof the state morally and legally.
That's it exactly. It's an attempt to wipe out the moral and economic basis for any future talk of reparations or justice for American descendants of slavery. If it was just labor, then there's no unique debt owed.
And the second motivation?
The second is about protecting the American myth.
The story the country tells about itself.
Right. The narrative of rugged individualism, of meritocracy, the idea that anyone can make it if they just work hard enough, that entire myth collapses the second you admit the truth the data shows,
Oh, shiz.
which is that the country's foundational wealth was built on 250 years of completely unpaid, maximally extracted labor, which was then immediately followed by another 100 years of economic oppression under Jim Crow.
So you have to admit the economic game was rigged from the very beginning.
Precisely. This revisionism is a desperate attempt to pretend that any economic disparity today is just about individual failure, not about a system with a built-in advantage and disadvantage from day one.
But the truth, as the sources show, is that the wealth of Wall Street, the expansion west, the foundation of the modern U.S. economy, it was all bought with the physical and mental destruction of millions.
The records are the undisputed receipts.
It's a difficult but absolutely essential set of facts. We've defined the economic architecture of U.S. chattel slavery, a financialized, race-based corporate system built on the pushing system, on insurance, on collateral, on social death.
And that really leaves us with one final necessary thought for you to consider. If the American imperial machine, as it's been called, was established as a corporate oligarchy built on state-sanctioned torture and theft, and specific tools like the financialization of human collateral, what modern institutions, financial, legal, political, are still running on the fundamental principles established during that time?
So how do those underlying structures persist even if the laws on the surface have changed?
Exactly.
A deeply challenging question, and one that requires all of us to look a lot closer at the foundation. We encourage you to seek out the sources we mentioned, the economic data, the historical accounts, and to keep exploring this history. Thank you for diving deep with us.